Welcome to the session, Strategies for Succession Planning and Sustained Business Profitability for Small Business. Now I'm going to hand things over to our presenter.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Dr. Icy Mae Barton, and I am a graduate of Walden University from the College of Management and Human Potential. My degree is in business administration with a strong concentration in human resources. And I would like to just personally thank my committee that was headed by the best chair here at Walden University, and that is Dr. Matthew Knight. My study title is Strategies for Succession Planning and Sustained Business Profitability for Small Business. Last year, I had the opportunity to present my proposal. Today, I will be able to now present to you the findings. Next slide. The problem statement. Rapidly retiring baby boomers are vacating prominent small business positions, leave no one to replace them, and by 2033, 70% of the US privately owned small businesses valued at $10 trillion will experience the highest intergenerational transfer of wealth in the United States. The general business problem is, without a succession plan, a small business may eventually fail or cease operating with the death or retirement of the small business owner. The purpose of this study was to explore strategies that small business owners use to develop an effective succession plan to sustain business profitability for the next generation of owners. I collected data by interviewing 7 small-sized business owners in the Washington, D.C., Baltimore metropolitan area in business for more than 5 years and implemented successful succession plans for transitioning their businesses to a second or third generation of owners and sustained profitability. The significance is small business owners may be motivated to develop an effective succession plan by using the findings to improve business strategies and practices. It is critical that a small business have an effective succession plan to sustain business profitability for the next generation of owners and develop an effective succession plan to sustain business operations. The lack of strategies to develop and implement a succession plan may cost small businesses millions of dollars. I did my theory under the lens of Argyris and Schön, organizational learning theory, and Burns, transformational leadership theory. Why? Each time when I was trying to decide what theory or framework I wanted to use, organizational learning theory and transformational leadership theory were always mentioned together as far as a successful business and transforming an organization. And this is the reason why I chose to do both. Next slide. This qualitative research case study involved a review of literature in government sources, academic and professional journals on small business sustained profitability and succession plan. Other topics in this literature review included a history and origins of succession planning in the military, why succession is essential to business success and profitability, development, training, and leadership, and understanding its contributions to the research problem. In qualitative research, researchers use a literature review to provide a scholarly setting to work and position other related studies with the research, distinguish gaps in information, abstain from researching already solved problems by identifying previous investigations on a subject, and last, set a basis for prior research on a topic and implement the broadness of information research. Next slide. The research question: what strategies do small businesses use to develop an effective succession plan to sustain business profitability for the next generation of owners? My participants were 7 small businesses in the Washington, D.C., Baltimore metropolitan area who had been in business for more than 5 years and successfully transitioned the business to second or third generation of owners. In this setting, I had the opportunity to talk to several business owners with a combined business experience of over 157 years of business. The procedures that I used were open-ended questions to gain insight and explore data not obtained from the closed-end questions that was used. The strategy for gaining access to participants was using professional contacts, professional networks such as the Society of Human Resource Management, LinkedIn, Toastmasters International, and Google to search for information regarding company owners and CEOs. My daily analysis was compiling the data into developing grouping, disassembling the data to eliminate and reduce homogeneous themes of the phenomenon, and then reassembling the data and cluster core themes. I checked the patterns against the documents and summarized the data into individual structural descriptions of the participants' experience. I was able to use the data research Navivo 12. It's a computer software generation that helped me to do this. Next slide, please. My findings: I had main themes and sub-themes. The 2 main themes that my study produced was planning for the future, training the personnel. The sub-themes were developing a succession plan and business mentorship and advisors. When you ask most business owners, they can tell you their mission statement and their vision statement. However, many have no exit strategy. But the business owners that I was able to interview had an exit strategy. That exit strategy included planning for the future, where they would be able to pass the business on to a family member, or branding their business to a point where they would be in position to sell it for a great profit. Training the personnel. A business owner, especially a small business owner, cannot do everything. And it is critical from the very beginning, or as personnel are added, that personnel are trained. And when they are trained, you are developing these personnel. In case something happens, they will be able to step in. One of the things that you see in large corporations, there are always men and women that are being developed for leadership positions. They have succession plans, but many small businesses do not. The business owner is wearing many hats. And so therefore, training personnel is very critical. Developing a session plan. What does a session plan look like? It differs with different businesses. One, because a business may be run by a family. And because it's a family-owned business, the person that the small business owner may want to succeed them may not be the best person. It could be an employee, because they have shown that they are committed and they understand the business. And that can cause a dynamic in a business that's owned by a small business. So it has to be carefully done in developing that succession plan. And when a small business owner starts from the very beginning, they give themselves the opportunity to see those that may emerge. The person that you may think could lead the business may be the least person, and the one that you thought was the least may be the best person. Having business mentorships and advisors. Some business owners are afraid to discuss their success or their desires with other business owners. That is not good. You need to have mentorship. You need to have advisors. These are people that may be retired business people, such as from SCORE, from the Small Business Administration, or people who have been successful in your line of business or in another line of business, but they understand the dynamics of business. And having a mentor or advisors, you create a safe haven where you can talk about your successes and your failures. And so this is important for any small business owners. If you look at large corporations, the person that is in the leadership positions, they had mentors, but they also had sponsorship. These are people that are sitting in the C-suite and talking about this business person, and that they have the talent and putting them in front of the right people. That's what business mentors and advisors can do. They may be able to introduce you to someone that can help you take you to the next level. And so many small businesses do not have that mentorship and advisors. And this was one of the sub-themes that came up over and over again. Strategies to overcome barriers. Let's face it, capital is a big issue in small business. You may have the best people, but you have to be able to pay them. So you need to be able to plan for the future in operating your business successfully from a financial standpoint. That means you need to go to the bank. Let the bank know who you are. You may not need a loan, but you still need to have that relationship with the bank so that you do have something in place, regardless to whether you need it or not. It is already there, and it's an ongoing process, an ongoing relationship that your bank needs to know where you're going, and they want to help successful businesses be more successful, because if you're successful, then the bank is successful. Hiring the right people. One of the things that a small business owner told me, you have to be in a position where you're willing even to fire family. And so in hiring the right people, you have to vet people. You have to ask people the right questions. Of course, you have to do it within the confines of the laws of the United States, but you have to hire the right people. And just because someone has the experience, has the education, they may not be the right person. You have to know your organization. What happens when you put an extroverted person in an office full of introverts? That may cause friction. And so you will have to be able to weave those relationships where an extrovert and an introvert would be able to work together for the goals and the mission of the business. Embracing technology. If you don't embrace technology, you will be left alone. As soon as something is introduced on the market, the next great thing is in development and will be presented. And so you have to embrace technology. And if you don't understand something, this is where you reach out to your millennials, your Gen X's, and ask for help. And that may be choosing to spend money, but it will be well worth the investment. Early development of a succession plan. The business owners that I spoke to, they all said the same thing, that developing the succession plan early was critical to their success. Now, just because you develop that succession plan, that doesn't mean that it's in stone. That succession plan needs to be reevaluated every year until it is completed, until you hand over that business to the next generation, or you brand it to the point where you are selling the business. That is critical. Next slide. This study's findings and recommendations may provide small business owners and senior managers as a practical guide to successfully staying their businesses for more than 5 years, implement successful succession plans for transitioning their business to second or third generation owners, and sustained profitability, growth, and sustained strategies. Small business face a critical constraint, including the lack of a mission or vision statement, succession planning, funding, human capital, management, and an exit strategy. The limitations that I found is that the 7 business owners who have been in business for 5 years and successfully implemented a succession plan in the Washington, D.C., Baltimore metropolitan area, who were able to participate, time and travel and time commitment for the participants to complete the study, and the findings might not apply to other populations. One of the best things that happened was the pandemic. Most of the interviews prior to the pandemic were done in person or over the telephone. At first, I did not embrace that technology. I wanted to have that one-on-one personal contact. However, by embracing technology and using Zoom, it worked out perfectly. I was able to conduct more than one interview in a day. My recommendations for further research is needed to explore the challenges small businesses face in obtaining the necessary capital to start and expand businesses. Many small businesses face challenges in accessing financial capital. Further research on alternative funding sources other than the Small Business Administration and on how small businesses access training and utilize these resources with minimal capital. I cannot stress that when I spoke with each small business owner, they stressed the importance of making sure you had accounting, you had CPAs, as well as maintaining your company, as well as your personal credit intact. That credit is a pot of gold. And so you need to make sure that you have the best credit, the top rating in everything that you do. Social change implications. Increased revenue for businesses that may lead to the creation of job opportunities and improvement of livelihood of community citizens and families. By utilizing effective HR strategies, small businesses can create social change by operating stable businesses, developing local economies for individual community prosperity, and reducing failure rates. Let me just say this with the social change implications. When a small business closes, the stakeholders may be invisible, but it affects the entire economy. When a small business closes, either through retirement or failure, there are employees that no longer are employed. And so the monies that they would use for mortgages or rent or at grocery stores are not able to fund into those communities, thus sustaining other jobs and other livelihoods. And so the success of a small business company in a community is critical. And so we want to see small businesses succeed. Next slide. Next slide. And so in closing, I have enjoyed doing this study. There is so much more and so many things that can be done in the community with small businesses. They are the backbone of the United States of America. They are the largest employer. And so having small businesses succeed means the United States of America succeeds, and that means success all around for all stakeholders. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Barton, for this fabulous presentation and sharing your research and passion with us today. As Dr. Barton said, we do have time for a few questions, so do feel free to put those in the chat and we'll take a couple questions. And Dr. Barton, as we're giving folks time to maybe think and type, I do see some good positive comments coming in, and I do see a question. So why do you think small business owners are afraid to share their success? Could it be that they're afraid to be transparent, private, or not educated or mentored to do so?
Thank you for the question. I believe it's both. I believe that many people are afraid to share their success because they feel someone will steal it. And so I would say, especially when you are developing your business, it is critical that you trademark, you make sure you have the patents if your business involves patents, and you make sure that you protect. And when you do business with other people, you have non-disclosure agreements. You have non-disclosure agreements also with your employees that you hire. So if they leave and go to another business, they cannot take what was developed in your business to that business. I think it's important to be transparent. When you look at the successful businesses that we study in school, such as Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, you want to know what went on to get to that point. And so eventually, if you're going to be successful, you're going to need to be transparent. And by being transparent, yes, you do take some risks, but if you have taken those risks in the beginning to make sure that you protect your business, one of the things that I see and I cringe is when I look on Instagram and I see people with business names and they do not have that in .com and they have not taken to protect your name. If you have a successful business, and I'm just using Instagram as a reference, and you don't have that name protected, someone could then take your name, go trademark it, get the .com website, and then send you a letter through their attorney to cease and desist. So you have to be smart about developing your business from day one with the name and make sure that you protect. So when you're asked, how did you become successful? Yes, you can share some things in public. Of course, you're not going to share everything, but those simple things, just by protecting your name and your processes, start with doing your homework and make sure you do it right and follow the things that are in place, especially here in the United States and as well as in other countries, to protect your idea.
Thank you.
And so let me just also about being educated. Sometimes people are not educated and they're not mentored. Again, it goes back to having those advisors that can advise you on the next level, and they may not be able to take you to where you want to go. However, they will be able to introduce you to someone that can educate you, can mentor you. And one of the best places in the world that I know that you can find some of that information is right here at Walden University, where you can learn the nuts and bolts of businesses.
Thank you, Dr. Barton, for answering that question in such detail. And I see some very positive comments coming through for you in the chat in support of your presentation. And if you don't mind, I have a question to take. So if you had to do this all over again and repeat this process, what might you do differently next time?
If I had to do this process all over again, the one thing that I would do is sit down and read. Sometimes we jump in feet first without reading the directions. And I believe that it is critical that you read the directions first. And here at Walden University, everything that you need to be successful is written. We provide it in writing. We also have webinars, but you still have to read. And when you read and do those things and take the time to do that, you will become successful. Not doing those things can cost you some time. So I can tell you in my process, it did take some time. It's just not about doing the study, because if it was, a lot of people would have their doctorate or their PhD, and that's not the case. When you earn the title of doctor, it is earned, and it requires a lot of things. And one thing that I probably would not do is I would not share with everybody that I was working on my doctorate. It just seemed that when I shared it, a lot of people had their opinions. Wow, how long is it going to take you? And that was the last thing I needed. What I needed was keep going, don't quit. And I had that with family members. I had that with mentors that made sure that I was okay. And you have to self-care. I was doing a lot of things that I would not do. As much as I like to be active in a lot of activities, learning to say no. That is critical, because when you say no, that you have to do something without explaining because this was an investment. And I started counting the costs. Every semester I was in school, it was costing me money. So when I look at this is my money that I'm spending, that I would have just done those things differently without sharing it, and I would have continued on the path that I was doing. The other thing was not listening to negative people. I had some people that were in programs that they talked about how they weren't happy with their chair. And that for me was not good. I was blessed. As I said, I had the best chair. And when I applied to have Dr. Knight as my chair, I did not tell him that the person who recommended me to Walden had also been one of his mentees. And so I wanted Dr. Knight to accept me into his cohort on my merits. And I have never been sorry when I made that decision. And that is the one thing that I would tell anybody: make sure that it's a responsibility. You have to get to know your chair. Your chair has to get to know you. And the things that I would do different is let my chair know me. I was afraid to ask questions. I was afraid, well, I didn't want to bother him. Well, that's what he's there for me to bother. And trusting the process and learning to trust the process. I am here today where I am because I trust the process. And one thing that I will share next month when I talk to to doctors, the doctoral students, is that it's futile to argue. Your chair knows what it's going to take to get you to the finish line. Trust the process and listen.
Thank you, Dr. Barton, for such great tips and just details for folks to keep in mind for this process. We appreciate your insight and sharing your experience with us as response to that question. And once again, we do really appreciate you sharing your research with us today as well. I don't see any other questions coming in the chat, but I do see lots of positive praise that I hope you see coming through, Dr. Barton.
I see that, and I just want to say thank you to everyone that came today. I know everyone that wanted to could not, but I thank you. And I thank you. Some of the people that are in this chat are people that have supported me. I see a member from my cohort and soon to be Dr. Eva Singleton. I'm rooting for you. It's coming.
Oh, wonderful. And thank you everyone for joining us and being here to support Dr. Barton in this fabulous presentation today.